Hi, everyone. It's 12:30, so let's get started. I hope everyone can hear me. This is our second ever LinkedIn Live event, and at Base Beauty, we're always testing out emerging platforms and familiarizing ourselves with them so that we're constantly innovating for our clients, and I'm hoping this goes off without a hitch. At our last event, I'm laughing because at our last event, we had a little bit of a trouble with the live stream, and one of our digital marketing coordinators made a hilarious blooper reel that I'm sure you'll see on our social channels this week. But let's jump in. My name is Elana McCary. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Base Beauty Creative Agency, and I'm so excited to have everyone here today at our virtual workshop, What Ex-Corporate Leaders Learned by Going Indie. I am also joined by Elana Drell Szyfer. Elana, if you want to introduce yourself and say hi.
Hi, Elana Drell Szyfer. I'm the CEO of Revive Skincare.
Great, thank you. So this event is really targeted to our audience today who are looking to grow their current brands and perhaps nurture acquisition. So I'm excited to share these next 30 minutes of insights with you and help you position your brand for that future success, whatever that looks like for you. Maybe you'll sell your brand one day to a larger global corporation and you want to see it succeed. And there are really things that those global brands can borrow from the indies. So that's what we'll focus on. Before we do that, I'll just give you a little bit of a top-line introduction to our agency at Base. Okay, so Base Beauty is an agency of pioneering thinkers, and that's really why big legacy brands and indie brands come to us with their revolutionary ideas so that we can share them and tell their stories to the consumers in the most compelling way. Our expertise has a total focus on beauty and wellness across every category in the space. And then let me tell you just a little bit in more detail about some of the industry firsts and innovations that we've shepherded. We launched Pause While Aging. We'll talk more about their founder, Rochelle, later on in the deck. One of the first brands to focus on menopausal skin. We worked with Clinique on their very first influencer campaigns ever. We help our clients to think about bigger conversations like important values like inclusivity in casting, no retouching and editing, sustainable materials and packaging. So we're always thinking 10 steps ahead and sharing that knowledge with our clients. These are our agency values. So we live and breathe these values through our work and our client collaboration. They are more than words on a screen to us. We really want to make sure that we are working with people who are respectful, kind, creative, open, have pride in themselves and their work so that we can really put out these types of messages to our people watching us as an agency and for our clients with the messaging that we're putting forward there. We also do some nonprofit work with some pro bono work with a nonprofit organization, Girls Helping Girls, period, an organization started by two women who were getting products to people who menstruate who are in need of those products, and Donate Beauty, a collective of editors getting products to frontline workers in the healthcare industry. We're featured in industry events. We're featured in industry press. We also have a top-rated beauty podcast, Where Brains Meet Beauty. It's available on iTunes and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And we had a partnership with Saks Fifth Avenue, the flagship store in a pre-pandemic world, where we had a live networking and recording event about once a month. And just to give you an idea of how we work at Base Beauty, we staff with 9 different areas of expertise. So you'll see a lot of these different departments and areas represented in the brainstorm that we did that we'll talk about today. We really value having everybody thinking from a very holistic perspective so that we're really feeding that digital marketing ecosystem from all different touch points. So we have branding and strategy, public relations, content creation like photo and video, the whole digital marketing suite, social media, organic, paid, web, everything like that. So we have a big focus on making sure that we can optimize the content we're creating across all these different departments so that we can put out these messages that are really cohesive to our consumer. All right, let's jump into today's topic. And you are totally welcomed and encouraged to post your comments throughout the session, throughout the next 30 minutes, so that we can engage with you. Don't be shy. We'll get to them. And if Elana and I don't have time to answer them through the next session, then we'll also make sure to find you after the event and follow up with you. We'll be sharing the deck that we have today, as well as a recording, seeing the recording of the event if you want to share it with people in your industry or your friends. Okay, so why is this topic important to us? What ex-corporate leaders learned by going indie? What we've seen it, brands come and brands go. And we kind of just want to think about this as a founder-led agency. It's painful for us to see this happen, where perhaps a brand was mismanaged or there was lack of sales and they had to, pull back or fall off the radar. So we really want to think about what these global corporations can learn from these indie brands that can perhaps help them with their current goals. So just to give you a taste of who our thinkers were for this brainstorm, we were joined by several of the beauty experts on our team at Base Beauty, our VP of Strategy, Design, someone from our social team, and our PR and influencer team. Jody, who many of you know probably in the audience, our founder and CEO. And then our guests, we had Elana, of course. We were joined by Rochelle Weitzner, the founder of Pause While Aging, a brand that has skincare for the 3 stages of menopause, and Jay-Z Zarzeki, the director of education at sales at the Inky List, formerly Becca. So these are just some snapshots to kind of paint that picture of brands who were, recent investments in M&A show how important indie brands are to the future growth of our industry. And not all the brands that are acquired by global strategies endure. So a couple water brands over here, we see this happen. And it's painful for people who are at the brands and people who are fans of the brands to see this. So what we're trying to do today is come up with different ways that will help your brand to avoid these pitfalls. So 2 of the main topics that came out of this brainstorm that Elana and I will go through. The first one, the fight for awareness drives innovation. The fight is capitalized for a reason. And the second one, leveraging smaller activations adds up. And again, that smaller is capitalized for a reason. So let's jump in here. Okay, so this first topic, this idea number 1, and Elana is here to share with us firsthand. Elana, you had such a great workaround for this situation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what this looked like at your brand?
Sure. So, obviously as a smaller brand, our budgets tend to be smaller, but we're obviously always looking to build brand awareness. And one of the groups that we were looking to reach out to were the dermatologists, especially being a science-backed skincare brand. Today the derms have huge followings both on Instagram and TikTok, and they're really seen as amazing sources of authority, but often that comes with a price point. So what we were trying to do was build authentic relationships with dermatologists, but do it, sort of within the confines of our budget. One of the things that I noticed was, especially as Clubhouse was kind of starting, so this is kind of last fall into the beginning of this year, that the derms were really starting to form their own communities on Clubhouse, and have their own forums and participate in other forums. And so what we did was we just kind of reached out to some of these derms through through Clubhouse. We introduced them to Dr. Brown. We sent them product. We listened in on their conversations. And then we just invited some of them to have conversations with us as a brand and with our founder, Dr. Gregory Bays Brown, who's a plastic and reconstructive surgeon. And they just had, they really connected to him. He connected to them. And it was just a way to kind of have forge these organic partnerships, honestly, without any spend. And some of them are relationships now that we've continued, whether from a seeding perspective, a content perspective, just having these conversations. Sometimes they just input, with us from an expert perspective. But that was kind of one way we got around, the formal paid partnership type of relationship.
I love that. It's such a smart, innovative workaround. And I think, well, let's think more about Clubhouse. So Clubhouse it's part of the marketing toolbox these days. It's a newer platform, but it's certainly something that people are starting to use now and have access to. And this is something in the marketing toolbox at every brand, right? Whether you're a global or an indie brand, everybody has access to this platform. So the resources that you can pump into it may vary widely. And Elana, your team, you had to find a workaround for that budget restriction, and you did so beautifully. So I think nimble brands can really leverage these insights and develop them into activations on your own level, taking them and really bringing them to life in ways that are scrappy and effective for your team so that your audience can benefit. We like to partner with experts. Like Elana mentioned, it's such a great way for people to develop that trust. And that's a big way for us to fight for awareness in this space, using these platforms to create those honest and authentic conversations with our audience. Okay, so Rochelle couldn't join us today, but I do want to share her insight in another way to fight for awareness as well. So Rochelle is the founder of this brand, and she knew, so her product line, there's several different products, skincare products for people going through this 3 stages of menopause. Rochelle knew that makeup artists were going to be a really important part of the conversation at Pause While Aging. So she wanted to find a way to really nurture these relationships with these people and make them feel important, because they're going to be big advocates for her brand, right? They are the ones applying skincare to their clients' faces as that blank canvas before they put the makeup on. So Rochelle actually spends time with these artists, training them one-on-one, sharing everything that she knows, which is a really deep level of knowledge on those product benefits and product ingredients, talking about the tips and tricks for things they can do when they're with their celebrity clients, and really making those makeup artists feel like a very important part of that ecosystem in her marketing toolbox. So that's something that we can think about for bigger brands or smaller brands. If you have a large budget, of course, a paid spokesperson, perhaps a celebrity partner, is super helpful for building awareness, but they're not going to be having those one-on-one conversations and really having those personal touch points that Rochelle is having with her makeup artists. So for a brand with a founder, you might want to think about how you can get in touch with those different mouthpieces for your brand. If you're a brand without a founder, think about who on your team is really somebody on the internal brand team that's really deeply connected to the brand. Maybe it's a product developer, maybe it's the director of education or a chemist or something like that. Put them in front of the relevant experts, whether they're makeup artists, hairstylists, skin health experts, consumer influencers, whoever they are, to really have these conversations with these people and train them in a way that feels super authentic and creates those moments with the different spokespeople that you're trying to reach. So that they can then share that information. Everybody loves that minutia. We see that all the time in social media and in different things that get picked up in the media as well. People want those little nuggets, and that's what the people in the brand team can share. So these future stars are probably already on your payroll, right? You just have to let them shine and think about that. Okay, so the big takeaway for fighting for awareness. So Elana, we probably hear brands say, we can't do it. It's too expensive. What do we want our audience to leave this presentation saying? What do we want them to take away from this?
I always believe that where there's a good idea, there is a way, right? For me, it's never about the money. It's always about, what is it you want to accomplish and what's the goal? And I always think there's always a way to find a way. And you can sort of figure out how to afford it afterwards, but sort of the idea is the most important part. Ideas are free. It just doesn't mean they're always easy to come by. And then you can figure out how to accomplish it afterwards.
Great, I love that. And then we have a question coming in for you, Elana. Let's go back to this Clubhouse slide. How big a time investment did you make with Clubhouse? How long did it take for this to make traction? And is Clubhouse a tool you're still using in this way?
Yeah, honestly, it was something that I was pursuing personally, and it was just something that, someone brought it to my attention. I started to invest my own personal time in it. I do work, a full-time job, and so it was just something that I sort of did like on the side. It was something very easy to do during COVID because we were all home, so I could sort of work and listen simultaneously. And so it didn't turn out to be a very big time commitment. Individually, I think it's just something that, like anything else, you just, to make an impact, you have to do it consistently. And honestly, I think we kind of got in at a time when there was a lot of interesting conversation happening on the channel. I think we kind of made some of the contacts that we wanted to, and we've moved on to other things since. We haven't been regularly using Clubhouse since.
So your team kind of has to react to what's happening on Clubhouse, how this is being leveraged as a tool in your marketing toolbox, and then determine what the bandwidth looks like for pushing that out into different tactics, right?
Exactly.
Great. Okay. All right. Let's jump into this second topic, this second big takeaway from our brainstorm. Leveraging smaller activations adds up. So Jay-Z is not able to join us today, but he did send us a video message, which kind of shares his perspective and his example that talks about taking kind of the knowledge that he had in his position and leveraging that into a smaller activation that has a big impact. So let's hear from Jay-Z.
Hi everyone, my name is Jay-Z and I'm the Director of Education and Sales for the Inky List. I'm really excited to be on today's panel speaking about what bigger brands can learn from indie brands. I'm off-site today, but very much ready to share my insight. At the Inky List, we believe that knowledge is your most powerful ingredient. And prior to joining the Inky List, one of the areas that fascinated me, that truly is a standout and very much different to what other brands are offering, is our service called Ask Inky. So 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, the Ask Inky team is a group of skincare experts that are positioned globally that are able to answer the most complex or simple question. So whether you're curious or confused about an ingredient, whether or not a product is right for you, or how to layer a product, there's no question too big or too small. And it's this personal connection to a skincare advisor is one area that sets apart the Inky List from our competition and has proven to be quite successful for our company. We're also doing other things that are unique and different. Earlier this year in February, our co-founders Colette Laxton and Mark Curry led what we call is an ask-a-thon on our YouTube channel. Now, this was no small feat. It was a 4-hour dedication to answering skincare and hair care questions. So along with our founders and the Ask Inky team, we also had 4 skincare influencers being able to provide customized skincare and hair care recommendations. And these skincare influencers included Dr. Alexis Stevens, Cassandra Bankson, James Welsh, and Hiram Yarbrough. We believe at the Inky List that better knowledge powers better decisions, and we're definitely doing things that other brands are not. One of the things I definitely have learned in my career working for smaller based brands is that small brands definitely appreciate experience, but they never overlook young and insightful people that bring fresh, new, innovative ideas. I've learned that listening to people at every level of every job allows you to have these bright, big ideas, and that's where the magic happens. Throughout my career, and very much at the Inky List, we always start with yes, let's do it. And we reserve those instances about saving it for another time or thinking that it's not worth our effort. We always start with yes, let's try it.
Great. Thank you, Jay-Z, virtually. Elana, let me ask you. So, I mean, I think we hear a lot, like Jay-Z, he mentioned this example of the ask-a-thon and how a smaller activation of kind of letting consumers have this open line of communication with the brand and with the experts is really something that creates a lot of engagement and creates trust. Have you had experiences at your brand where you're thinking about how you can find ways for the consumers to have that line of open communication with a smaller activation like this that we can then use those insights in a bigger way?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ways that we do that actually is kind of leveraging something that's considered sort of a more traditional event and then utilizing it for insight. So, kind of not only pre-COVID, but during COVID, our founder, a big part of our activity with wholesale partners is in-store events. Where Dr. Brown, our founder, goes into store and will meet with customers one-on-one, and someone from the brand is always with him. And we did that both, pre-COVID, we would do that in a store in kind of a private room or a roped off area where Dr. Brown would meet with a customer one-on-one. And through those conversations, I think one of the things we do is we learn a lot about why someone has used Revive for a long time, which is something we might then incorporate back in either kind of some of our social messaging or even in some of our ideas for products. And then during COVID, although we couldn't go in store, I mean, just the idea that we kind of knew we moved very quickly to be able to bring these same events online with customers, even having one-on-ones with Dr. Brown, and then utilizing kind of what people were saying to us as inspiration for either other events or product ideas, messaging ideas, etc. So one example that I can take from that is we noticed early on in COVID, everybody obviously was tuned in to, Anthony Fauci. It was kind of like a moment of the whole universe was looking to a scientist for a source of information. And so what we did very quickly in response was we brought our scientist and our doctor, Dr. Brown, quickly into social to kind of talk about like, why is it you wear a mask? And what was his experience as a surgeon wearing a mask all day long? And, what does that do to your skin? And then what kind of products do you need to use, et cetera? This is long before people were talking about maskne. This was kind of like right in end of March, beginning of April of 2020. And so those are some ways that I think, we kind of listen to what's happening out there and figure out how in a brand appropriate way do we interpret it for ourselves and then put it forward.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Really valuable moment for consumers to really have that one-on-one with Dr. Brown. And I don't think those insights are going away, with where we are after the pandemic. I think that the consumers they still crave that transparency from brands, and they want to have that understanding from the scientists and from the doctor and the experts. So what a valuable line of communication with them. Elana, we have another question coming in for you. Okay, so thinking about these smaller activations, which may start at a smaller level, how do you bring junior team members into the ideation decision making?
I think that sometimes having fewer people sort of in your organization kind of makes it flatter. So I can just tell you about an experience we're having right now. We have 3 interns on our team this summer, and lots of people use interns in different ways. But given some of sort of the workload on our plate, the number of product launches we're working on, different things within the brand. Sometimes you can look at something as a crisis, but I always say careers are made in crisis. So I can tell you that our interns right now are heavily involved in social media strategy, heavily involved in content creation. We really kind of, I think, look across the organization for the best ideas, not like the source of the idea. And we're a meritocracy, I would say, in terms of idea creation. It doesn't have to come from the top. It just has to come, and then we use it. And so yeah, I think we're very cross-functional in terms of ideas. I have another like very relevant example. We had a company picnic 2 weeks ago. We're not back in the office, although I'm here today, and so we used it as an opportunity to get together outside. And a cross-functional team was kind of brainstorming about ways to utilize inventory before it expired. They came up with a great sort of idea for our e-commerce. We ran it last weekend. We'll have one of our biggest non-holiday months on our own e-commerce ever. And that was a completely, kind of cross-functional team idea and concept. And so again, I think, there's no pride of ownership in terms of where, if you can operate in a way where there's no pride of ownership in terms of where an idea comes from and move quickly, I think that's the best way to leverage smaller, flatter organizations.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Nobody's role is too big or too small to have a great idea.
Yeah, and what I
Okay,
can say about both of those examples is I personally had nothing to do with them.
Isn't that great when you get to be hands off and it still works?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I think we probably have time for about one more question. Elana, what do you think of the M&A situation and how some brands can grow under their new owners and others fizzle out?
Again, I would say this is really more for brand CEOs or brand founders when they're looking to either raise money or sell to somebody. Um, don't only be enticed by the opportunity of the capital. I think, a sale or a capital, infusion, any type of partnership, think about it as a friendship or ultimately a marriage. You're really going to, you're not just making a partnership with the money. You're making a partnership with the people, with their philosophy, with their ideals, and with their strategic outlook. And, honestly, I don't think the partnerships don't work because there was a lack of capital. I think generally partnerships don't work because there's a lack of strategic alignment. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen that with smaller brands who sell to PE or to platforms. And I've seen that, obviously, we've all seen that with brands that sell to strategics. You used those examples in the beginning. I don't think it's for anybody's lack of trying. I think it's really for a lack of strategic alignment on what the next set of outcomes are.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much. So, we are just about at time. So our two key takeaways were to, be creative, fighting for awareness, and to leverage those smaller activations. Thank you so much, Elana, and everyone who joined us today. As a reminder, we'll send out the deck and the recording to this event, and find us afterwards if you have any additional questions. Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.